Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing another eyeshadow palette review, and I haven't done one of these in a little while. I haven't felt like there's been a ton of new releases lately, but there's definitely going to be some, I think, heading into fall. There always is. So I got this in the mail yesterday. This is the Colourpop It's a Mood palette, and I've been testing it out just really briefly. I mean, we all know Colourpop's formula already, so it's not really a big surprise as far as formula goes, but I really wanted to just sit down and do some comparisons, especially because I feel like those are very helpful when you see a new palette like this and it looks really gorgeous and, you know, everybody's thinking, do I have these colors already or not? So I wanted to get this up before it launched. But anyway, in this video, we're going to take a close-up look at the palette. I'm going to show you guys some swatches and then we will do some comparisons. So first up, outer packaging is really beautiful. This is one of their large mega palettes. It has 30 shades inside. You have all the shade names on the back here, and I love the textured packaging. It almost kind of looks like a sweater. It has that little like bumpy, knobby sort of look to it. It's really, really cute. And then on the inside, we have all of this beautiful color, and I feel like this is the type of color that I gravitate toward if I'm gonna buy a colorful palette. I like things that aren't super bright or rainbow. I think these colors are pretty wearable for the most part, and you do have a really nice range of lighter colors on top down to deeper colors. So I see this going kind of from light to dark this way, and then also it's kind of set up in different rows as well. This half of the palette I feel like is very kind of warm tone neutrals, and then this side over here you have your blues and greens and purples and just really cool tones. So I like that they divided up the palette that way and they didn't mix all the colors together. If you want to stick with a warm tone look, just go for this side. If you want to do something a little bit more cool, you can go for that side, or you can also mix warm and cool together, which I actually did today. So again, we have 30 shades, we have matte finishes, metallic finishes, and then there are also 3 pressed glitters in this palette as well. I know they're not everybody's cup of tea, but at least it's only 3 out of the 30 shades, so you still have 27 other colors to play with if you don't want to use the glitters. And we just have beautiful, rich, rusty tones with pops of plums and greens and teals. You really have these jewel tones going on, but like I said, they're not super bright, so I think a lot of them would be wearable for those of you who aren't really big on color. And I think overall it's just a beautiful fall color story. So just a few quick pros and cons of this palette. On the pro side, I think you just have so much variety to choose from. You can create a million different looks with this palette, and you can go from subtle to smoky to a more colorful look to something a little bit more neutral. So I feel like there's really something for everybody in this palette. I think it will work for a range of different skin tones as well. And also on the pro side, the formula is wonderful. It's Colourpop's normal formula. All of them swatched beautifully, and applying them to my eyes also was very seamless, very easy. They just blend out like a dream, and they're just so easy to work with, especially if you are somebody like me who's not the best at blending. I think that these shadows, the mattes, are just so soft and really easy to blend. My only tip would be to just make sure that you tap off your brush so that you don't have powder going everywhere, because they are a little bit powdery. So then on the negative side for this palette, it does have the pressed glitters. I know when I posted swatches on Instagram, I got a lot, pretty much almost every comment was about the glitters. I feel like you guys were really disappointed. I think Colourpop for a while there was keeping the pressed glitters out of their palettes, and I felt like they were really listening to their customers who said that they didn't want those, and now all of a sudden here they are back in the palette again. So I was a little bit bummed when I saw them, but again, at least it's not a small 12 pan or 9 pan palette where you don't have a lot of other options. You really have so much more in the palette that I'm just going to skip the glitters and not even bother with them. So it's not a big deal for me, but I just wanted to put that out there. Another con for this palette was with some of these orangey shades on this half of the palette, I feel like they look really, really similar to each other, which you probably noticed in the swatches. I think this one, and this one, they're all slightly different, but I think once they're blended out on your eyes, they might look a little bit similar. So I was kind of hoping for some other matte shades in here besides all of these orangey tones, because there's quite a few of them that are really just like one step away from each other. And then the last negative is just that there might be too much variety in here for some people. I also got those types of comments on Instagram as well, that you're just not buying larger palettes right now. You're more focused on quads or just smaller color stories that you just don't get overwhelmed by, and I can totally see that as well. I personally love the variety. I love big palettes, but I can definitely see where you're coming from, because sometimes I do just reach for, you know, a smaller quad or something if I'm in a hurry or if I'm just like feeling uninspired and I don't want to have to sit and look through all of this. But I do love the big ones when I'm in the mood to play with makeup and I just want to, you know, practice my skills a little bit or just have fun creating new looks. Okay, so before we get into the comparisons, I just want to quickly highlight and show you guys up close a couple of shades in this palette that I think are a little bit more unique, and they're the ones that I've just been loving the most. And I just want to do that quickly because I feel like there were so many swatches that I showed you that these shades get lost in the shuffle a little bit. So the first one that I want to show you is the shade Thunder, and this is actually the one that I'm wearing on my eyelids today. And this color is so stunning. It looks bluish in the pan, but when you swatch it, it's like a blue that shifts to a silver or a gray. Let me just quickly show you up close what it looks like on my eyes. I just love it. It's so beautiful. And even though it's more of a cool tone shade, I paired it with some of the warmer oranges in my crease, and I just love this look so much. And I also thought that the shadow showed up really nicely too, because when I first swatched it, I was worried that it was going to be a topper, and it's not. It just has this really full pigment and it's just gorgeous. And then the next one that I wanted to show up close is the shade Surface. And this one looks green in the pan, and I thought it was going to be, but when you swatch it out, it's kind of like a yellowish green or like a golden green. So it's a little different than I was expecting, but it's so smooth yet at the same time very foiled and shiny on your eyes. And I just feel like we see a lot of gold shadows in palettes, but we don't always see golds that have this greenish tinge to them. So I really thought this one was pretty also. Also, the shade Reunion surprised me a little bit. In the pan, it just looks like your basic kind of light pink shimmer shade. But when I swatched it out, and I actually put this one on my eyes yesterday, it almost has like, it's pink, but it has like a peachy shift to it. And it really, like, it made my eyes pop so much, and it made them look really awake and more open. And especially if you have hooded eyes, I think this shade would be just beautiful because it really brings your lid forward a little bit more. And again, I just loved the shine that it gave without being overly shimmery or glittery. So I loved this color as well. And then one of the matte shades that I thought was beautiful is the shade Night Call. This one is a soft dove gray, which I think is going to be just a gorgeous cool toned blending shade. I think we see a lot of grays that are darker and more smoky in palettes, and I just love the softness of this one. Now, the only thing is, I think this color would be great for somebody with a lighter skin tone. I think it might look a little more ashy on someone with deeper skin tones, but I just called it out because I feel like most grays in palettes are a little bit too dark for me with my skin tone, so I could see myself even going into this palette for that specific shade if I'm doing something more cool toned or a little gray, even with another palette, because you just really don't find soft light grays like that one. So I really thought that color was beautiful as well. All right, guys, so now let's get into some comparisons with some other palettes. I did get some requests on Instagram to swatch this next to Raw Beauty Christie's palette at Forest Sight and also the Gather Round sisters from last fall. Unfortunately, I don't have either one of those, so I'm not going to be able to do a comparison, but I definitely can see some similarities when it comes to both palettes. So the first one I wanted to compare it to was Good Sport. This was a fall release. Gosh, I don't even know when this was. Years ago now. This is still one of my favorite fall palettes of all time. I love this one so much. It's absolutely gorgeous. So when I looked at the two palettes side by side, yes, they both have warm neutrals. They both have the greens. They both have the purpley colors. But I think the blue shades in the It's a Mood palette were just throwing me off a little bit. I didn't feel like they looked super similar. But once I swatched them together on my arm, at least all of the shades that they had in common that were similar, I was blown away. It looks basically like a bigger, more extended version of Good Sport, which kind of makes sense because that was a fall release. It was so well loved that it just makes sense for them to include some of those same shades in this palette again. The next comparison I definitely wanted to make was with another one of their mega palettes, the So Jaded Kathleen Lights palette. This one was immediately what I thought of when I saw It's a Mood. I just thought that they were going to be really, really similar to each other, just because they both have that mix of, again, the warm neutrals, the greens, the teals, the purples. I mean, really like a lot of different things in common. I do think that the Kathleen Lights palette has some reds that the It's a Mood doesn't, and the pressed glitters are a little bit different, but other than that, I really saw so many similarities. And when you look at the swatches, I think some of them are just completely spot on and look almost exactly the same and probably would really look similar on your eyes. Other ones, not quite as much, but I think if you have the Kathleen Lights palette already, you can definitely skip It's a Mood if you want to, because they are really, really close. And then on the flip side, if you missed out on So Jaded and you kind of regretted that, then here's your chance to get something pretty similar to that. So yeah, I was definitely blown away by the similarities there. Another fall palette that I thought of when I saw It's a Mood is the Too Faced Pumpkin Spice palette. So this one is last year's release. And again, I just thought that these had so many similar colors, from the purples and the greens to those warm neutrals. The one thing that the Too Faced doesn't have are the blues and teals that are in It's a Mood. But swatching the shades that they do have in common, again, I was really blown away by just how close these are. So if you have the Pumpkin Spice palette already and you don't really wear blue eyeshadows, you pretty much have most of the other shades that are in the It's a Mood palette. So again, you could probably go ahead and skip it. And then the next comparison is with the e.l.f. Retro Paradise palette. So when I saw this one as well, I felt like it was kind of similar. It has the purple and the blue and some of those warm neutrals. It doesn't really have the greens. It has one green, but it's more of like a minty green, and the ones in the It's a Mood palette are definitely more on the olive side, and there's a few yellowy greens as well. So I felt like the e.l.f. Retro Paradise is definitely missing the greens, but as far as the rest of it goes, I think it does have a very similar vibe. It may not be quite as close as some of the other comparisons that I had, but if you have the e.l.f. Retro Paradise palette, which I know a lot of you guys do, then you know, it might make you think a little bit about whether you feel like you need the It's a Mood palette, because it is kind of close. So anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on the new It's a Mood palette from Colourpop. Overall, I do think it is a gorgeous, stunning palette. I really am enjoying playing with it a lot. Like I said, it does have a couple of unique shades in it that I just love, but also I do think I also have a lot of similar stuff in my collection already. So I hope this was helpful for you, and if you are planning to purchase it, or if you're not, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below as always. And if you like eyeshadow palette videos like this one, I'll go ahead and pop some right up there on the screen for you to check out next. Thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all in my next video. Take care, guys. Bye.